25 people boarded a school bus in 2002 and were never seen again. For 2 decades, the Maple Creek disappearance haunted the country like a ghost story. No wreckage, no remains, no answers. But in 2023, everything changed. A buried bus was found deep in the Oregon wilderness, alongside 15 skeletons. Then, out of nowhere, a survivor walked into a police station, claiming they'd escaped a cult. What happened in those woods? Who's still missing? And is the forest hiding something darker than we imagined? This is the story of the Maple Creek mystery and the secrets it refused to keep. On the morning of June 7, 2002, 25 people departed Maple Creek Secondary School on what was meant to be a celebratory graduation retreat. They never returned. Among the missing were 23 senior students and 2 adult chaperones. Their destination was Black Hollow Reserve, a remote forested area selected for its seclusion and natural beauty. The group traveled by yellow school bus, designated bus number 43, with a temporary substitute driver at the wheel. None of them were seen or heard from again until over 2 decades later. The students ranged in age from 17 to 18. They represented a diverse mix of academic achievers, athletes, creatives, and community-involved youth. Aisha Rahman, the class valedictorian, was known for her academic discipline and leadership. She was the daughter of City Councilor Imran Rahman. Leon Grant, the school's star basketball player, had recently been accepted to the University of Texas with a full athletic scholarship. May Lynn Rodriguez, a soft-spoken student who often kept to herself, left behind a portfolio of abstract and often unsettling drawings that would only come to light years later. Her work would later become a focal point in understanding the psychological landscape of the group during their final days. The adult chaperones were Mr. Derek Lawson, a respected history teacher known for organizing school trips, and Ms. Reena Patel, a parent volunteer deeply involved in school activities. Both were praised for their dedication and trusted by students and parents alike. Their disappearance, along with the entire group, left the Maple Creek community in shock and mourning. One name eventually resurfaced: Noah Barrett, a student with a reputation as the class joker and amateur filmmaker. Noah emerged in 2023 under extraordinary circumstances, claiming to have survived what authorities had long believed was an unsolved mass disappearance. His reappearance reignited national interest and reopened the case. At the time of discovery, DNA and dental records confirmed that 15 individuals had died. 8 students and both adult chaperones remain missing, with no confirmed trace of their whereabouts. The official count stands at 10 people still unaccounted for. Despite years of investigation, media coverage, and speculation, the full scope of what happened to the class of 2002 remains unresolved. The tragedy left a lasting scar on Maple Creek, a town forever tied to a mystery that continues to echo through missing persons reports, family testimonies, and unanswered questions. As new evidence surfaced in 2023, authorities were forced to revisit a case many had considered permanently closed. But for the families of the missing, the wait continues, marked by silence, grief, and hope. On the afternoon of June 7, 2002, 23 students and 2 adult chaperones boarded bus number 43 for a weekend graduation retreat to Black Hollow Reserve. The destination had been carefully chosen by faculty as a quiet, forested escape to mark the end of the school year. Excitement buzzed through the group as they packed bags, exchanged jokes, and posed for a final group photo outside Maple Creek Secondary School. A handycam video, later recovered from a family member, captured some of these candid moments. Students loading gear, waving to the camera, and boarding the bright yellow school bus for what was supposed to be a 3-day trip. At the wheel was Stephen Klein, a temporary substitute driver filling in last minute due to scheduling conflicts with the regular staff. Klein was listed in the transportation system as cleared for school routes, but had no documented history with Maple Creek. The decision to approve him for this particular trip would later be scrutinized during the initial investigation. Nevertheless, bus number 43 departed from the school grounds at approximately 4:30 p.m., with the group scheduled to arrive at Black Hollow Reserve by 6:15 p.m. The last known contact from anyone on board came at 6:48 p.m. A voicemail from Sarah Kahn to her father captured just a few seconds of audio. Her voice was calm, followed by an abrupt pause. Then a burst of static cut off the message. It was the final recorded communication from any of the 25 people on the bus. From that moment on, no cell phone signals were detected from students or chaperones. GPS tracking was unavailable due to the remote nature of the area, and no further calls, texts, or updates were received by any of the families. By the morning of June 8th, concerned parents began reaching out to school administrators and one another. Calls to the ranger station near Black Hollow confirmed that the group had never checked in. The campsite remained empty, untouched. No tire tracks, footprints, or signs of recent activity were reported. Search crews mobilized quickly. Over the following days, helicopters, tracking dogs, and forest patrol teams scoured the dense woodland surrounding the projected route. No visual trace of bus number 43 or its occupants was discovered. Surveillance from the surrounding roads yielded nothing of interest. Local residents reported no unusual activity. Authorities reviewed all departure footage and verified the group's presence on campus that day. The group photo, timestamped and authenticated, showed all 25 individuals smiling before departure. The Handycam recording further confirmed their state of mind: relaxed, celebratory, and unaware of any danger. Investigators later retrieved a partial time-stamped clip showing the bus pulling away from the school parking lot. After that moment, the vehicle seemingly vanished. The absence of evidence presented a baffling scenario. In an age before widespread GPS use or real-time tracking, the disappearance unfolded without any digital footprint. No accident site was discovered. No roadside debris, overturned vehicle, or personal belongings were recovered. It was as if the bus had simply left the road and evaporated into the forest. With no signs of foul play at the departure point and no communication from the group, authorities were left with only unanswered questions. The sudden silence, the missing bus, and the final static-filled voicemail would come to define the earliest phase of a case that would confound investigators for decades. The morning of June 8, 2002, began with growing concern as family members realized that no student or chaperone had checked in at Black Hollow Reserve. Scheduled arrival time had long passed, and phones rang unanswered. Within hours, local law enforcement was notified. By noon, a formal missing persons report was filed. The response was immediate and massive. Authorities initiated a multi-agency operation involving local police, state troopers, search and rescue units, forest rangers, and aerial surveillance. Helicopters swept the area above Black Hollow Reserve and its surrounding trail systems. Ground teams followed the projected route from Maple Creek to the reserve, checking every intersection, overlook, and logging path. Divers were dispatched to nearby lakes and rivers. Despite the exhaustive effort, there were no signs of bus number 43. No tire tracks, no broken branches, no discarded belongings. The bus had left no trace. Experienced searchers described the situation as deeply abnormal, even in terrain known for its isolation. As the days progressed, the scale of the search expanded. Nearby towns were canvassed. Witnesses were interviewed. Roadside security cameras and traffic footage were reviewed, but none captured the bus after it left the school. The name Stephen Klein, the substitute driver, became a point of focus. Investigators were unable to locate him. No recent records, known address, or employment trail could be verified. The name itself appeared legitimate in transportation rosters, but with no corroborating background. Attempts to track down next of kin or previous employers yielded no results. On June 11th, 3 days into the search, a glimmer of hope emerged. A local hiker reported seeing a bright object near a ravine roughly 12 miles from the projected route. Investigators rushed to the location. There, at the base of a steep drop, they found a disposable camera partially buried in mud. The casing was cracked, and the film inside had been removed. The location was logged and searched thoroughly, but no other objects or indicators of the group's presence were found. No footprints, clothing, or debris surrounded the site. The absence of the film raised immediate suspicion. Who had removed it, and why? The media quickly picked up on the story. National networks broadcast the search. Press conferences were held daily. Volunteers from neighboring counties joined the effort, forming human chains to comb through the thick forest underbrush. Still, after nearly a week, no physical trace of the bus or its 25 passengers had surfaced. The community, already shaken, was dealt another shock on June 13th, when the Barrett family, parents of student Noah Barrett, received a letter in the mail. The envelope had no return address. Inside was a single line written in shaky block letters. "We're alive. Let us go." Authorities immediately seized the letter for analysis. Initial reaction was mixed. Could this be confirmation that the group was still alive? Forensic handwriting analysts compared the note to school documents, yearbooks, and parents' submitted samples. Their conclusion: the handwriting did not match any student, staff member, or known associate. Ink and paper analysis suggested the note had been recently written, but there was no traceable origin. The postmark came from a distribution center 50 miles from Maple Creek, offering no concrete lead. Investigators began to suspect the note was a cruel hoax. The psychological toll on families was profound. Daily updates turned into speculation. Rumors spread. The lack of answers only deepened the anguish. By June 14th, with no new developments, search operations began scaling down. Key zones were reswept, data reanalyzed, and terrain models reviewed for missed possibilities. But the findings remained unchanged. No broken guardrails, no forest entry points with vehicle imprints, no sign of a crash, detour, or shelter. In July, the case was transferred from the local precinct to state-level jurisdiction. A formal review found no procedural errors but confirmed that every lead had run dry, without evidence of foul play. No charges could be filed, no suspects could be named, no explanation could be verified. Finally, in August 2002, the investigation was officially closed. The group was declared a mass disappearance. The case file was labeled inactive, though not forgotten. For families, the closure was symbolic, not emotional. Without bodies, confessions, or answers, grief remained suspended in uncertainty. Memorials were held. Photographs and yearbooks became relics of a timeline that had simply stopped. The mystery of what happened during those missing days, between departure and silence, persisted in whispers, theories, and empty spaces where facts should have been. On June 4, 2023, over 2 decades after the disappearance of bus number 43, solo backpacker Julian Fisher stumbled upon a forgotten ruin deep inside Black Hollow Forest. Far off established trails and beyond any mapped routes, he noticed the faint gleam of faded yellow beneath a dense cover of vines, moss, and earth. Approaching cautiously, Fisher discovered the skeletal remains of a school bus, partially sunken into the forest floor and nearly consumed by nature. The number on its side, barely visible beneath layers of grime and lichen, read 43. There was no accessible road or clearing that would explain how the vehicle arrived in this location. Surrounding brush showed no tire marks, and the nearest trailhead was over 8 miles away. The site's remoteness and overgrowth suggested the bus had been placed there deliberately and left untouched for years. When Fisher peered inside, what he saw prompted him to call authorities immediately. Within hours, the scene was secured. Forensic and crime scene teams arrived the next morning. The bus interior had collapsed in parts, with the roof buckled and vegetation spilling through windows. Personal belongings lay strewn across the floor: varsity jackets, duffel bags, water bottles, notebooks, all in various stages of decay. A layer of damp leaves and fungal growth coated the seats. Most items had disintegrated with time, but a few names were still legible, linking the objects back to the missing students of Maple Creek Secondary. More significantly, forensic specialists discovered human remains. In total, 15 sets of skeletonized bodies were recovered from inside and immediately around the vehicle. Of these, 3 were found in a distinct formation at the rear of the bus, seated upright, hands folded, arranged in a triangular pattern. Investigators noted their posture and position as ceremonial in nature. Though no further interpretation was given publicly, the remaining remains were scattered or collapsed within the confines of the structure, suggesting natural decay rather than external disruption. Dental records and DNA analysis were conducted over the following weeks. Confirmed matches linked the remains to 15 of the 25 individuals reported missing in 2002. Among those identified were students Aisha Rahman and Leon Grant. Their belongings, labeled clothing, ID tags, and fragments of student materials, helped speed up the confirmation process. The adult chaperones, Mr. Derek Lawson and Miss Reena Patel, were not among the identified remains. One of the most discussed pieces of recovered evidence was a worn sketchbook located under a decaying seat near the middle of the bus. The item was later confirmed to belong to Mei Lin, the quiet student known for her artistic work. Despite water damage and mold, much of the sketchbook's content was salvageable. The pages contained detailed black ink illustrations. Some appeared to be personal drawings, faces, nature, abstract figures. Others, however, depicted scenes interpreted as ritualistic or symbolic. Several images featured human figures in masts, flames rising from forest clearings, and symbols resembling ancient or non-standard glyphs. These drawings would later become the subject of forensic and psychological analysis. The discovery reignited national attention. News outlets covered the event with urgency, revisiting a case many had resigned to mystery. Law enforcement issued a statement confirming the scene had been secured, the remains cataloged, and the site restricted for ongoing investigation. They noted that while 15 individuals were now accounted for, 10 remained unlocated. Among them were 8 students and both adult chaperones. Specialized teams were brought in to study the landscape. The surrounding forest was combed for secondary sites, but no additional remains or significant evidence was found. The area's dense terrain and years of environmental wear limited the scope of recovery efforts. However, what had been uncovered inside bus number 43 was deemed a breakthrough, the first concrete evidence in a 21-year-old disappearance. Authorities withheld further comment pending full forensic review, but the recovery of the sketchbook and ceremonial pose of 3 victims were cited in internal reports as unusual elements warranting deeper analysis. Investigators concluded that the location had been intentionally chosen to ensure the bus remained hidden. No plausible route existed for the vehicle to have reached the site unaided, suggesting post-disappearance relocation. The discovery of bus number 43 provided long-awaited closure for some families, confirmation of loss for others, and a renewed mystery for investigators. While it answered where the group had ended up, it did little to explain how or why. On the morning of June 11, 2023, exactly 1 week after the discovery of bus number 43, a man entered the front lobby of Larkridge Police Headquarters. He was unkempt, barefoot, and visibly distressed. He identified himself as Noah Barrett, a member of the missing Maple Creek class of 2002. Initially dismissed as a possible hoax, the claim quickly gained traction when preliminary checks revealed an undeniable resemblance to the long-missing student. Officers collected fingerprints and a DNA sample. Within hours, forensic labs confirmed the identity. The man was indeed Noah Barrett, the only known survivor of the vanished class. News of Noah's reappearance spread rapidly. He was placed under immediate protective custody, and a specialized trauma response team was assigned to assist in his care. Early interviews revealed fragmented memories and emotional instability. According to officers involved, his initial statements were inconsistent, marked by long pauses, sudden outbursts, and references to things they made us believe. He appeared disoriented, repeatedly asking if the trees were still watching. Investigators proceeded cautiously, prioritizing his medical and psychological stabilization. Over the following weeks, as his condition improved, Noah provided a formal statement. It was a harrowing account. He claimed that shortly after the bus's disappearance, the group was taken deep into the woods, not by accident, but by design. According to him, the driver, Stephen Klein, was not just a substitute, but part of an organized group calling themselves the Ascended. The retreat had been a lure. Once isolated, the students were subjected to psychological conditioning, starvation, and repeated rituals that blurred the line between belief and coercion. Noah described a system of control rooted in deprivation and manipulation. Group members were forced to chant phrases, deny their previous identities, and endure prolonged periods without food or sleep. Those who resisted were removed from the group. He claimed they were offered to the trees, a phrase he later explained referred to symbolic sacrifices carried out by masked individuals in forest clearings. He stated that adults, including the chaperones, were separated from the students early on. Their fate, he said, was never fully revealed to him. He recounted that over time, group hierarchy took shape. Some students complied, others broke down. He described cleansing rituals, where participants were buried up to their necks in soil for hours. Fire circles, chanting in languages they didn't understand, all under the supervision of figures who claimed to be enlightened. The goal, according to Noah, was to shed the past and achieve transcendence. Failure to do so led to punishment, exile, beatings, starvation. Noah said he pretended to conform in order to survive. His escape, he said, occurred in 2010. After a failed fire ceremony during a storm, confusion and panic swept through the group. In the chaos, Noah slipped away under cover of darkness. He survived in the forest for days, eventually reaching a rural property where he stole clothes and food before disappearing again. For over a decade, he drifted across towns, avoiding contact, too afraid to speak. Only after the discovery of the bus and the remains of his classmates did he feel compelled to come forward. Later in 2023, Noah published a memoir through a nonprofit survivor advocacy group. Titled What the Forest Took, the book provided a detailed chronological account of his experiences, including names, rituals, and the day-to-day horrors endured during his captivity. The writing was blunt, unfiltered, and deeply disturbing. It included illustrations of the rituals, floor plans of forest camps, and accounts of group dynamics under duress. Readers noted the same symbols found in Mei Lin's recovered sketchbook appearing in Noah's hand-drawn diagrams. The memoir received widespread attention. Some praised it as a vital piece of testimony. Others questioned its accuracy, citing trauma-related memory distortion. Law enforcement declined to verify specific claims, but acknowledged the overlap between Noah's account and recovered physical evidence. He was relocated under witness protection, and further interviews were conducted in private settings. To date, Noah remains the only person to have returned from the group alive, and his testimony remains central to the reopened investigation. Following the rediscovery of bus number 43 in June 2023, forensic investigators conducted a comprehensive examination of the vehicle and its surroundings. The bus, buried under layers of vegetation and partially sunken into the earth, showed signs of deliberate concealment. Soil deposits and root patterns suggested it had been immobile for over 2 decades. The narrow terrain and absence of tire impressions confirmed what officials suspected. The bus was not driven to the site, but moved there, likely using mechanical equipment, and intentionally hidden from view. Inside the bus, conditions reflected long-term environmental exposure. Seats were rotted, windows shattered, and vegetation had overtaken large portions of the interior. Yet among the decay, personal items remained. Varsity jackets, notebooks, and duffel bags were found, many with identifying names still visible. Class memorabilia, keychains, yearbooks, and a school pennant were scattered throughout. These items affirmed that the occupants had once intended a normal trip, reinforcing that the bus had been preserved in its final state rather than vandalized or looted. 16 sets of skeletal remains were recovered, with 3 arranged in a ceremonial pose near the rear. The formation was triangular, with the bodies seated upright and facing inward. No tools or implements were found to indicate restraint or struggle. Forensic anthropologists noted that the positioning of the remains was unlikely to occur naturally. Combined with the symbolic drawings found at the scene, this arrangement added a layer of ritualistic implication. Among the most significant discoveries was Mei Lin's sketchbook. Found near the center of the bus, its cover was water-damaged but intact. Inside, investigators uncovered dozens of illustrations depicting abstract figures, masked individuals surrounding fire pits, and repeated appearances of glyph-like symbols. Many pages featured geometric patterns and forest motifs. Experts confirmed the drawings matched Mei Lin's known artistic style from school projects. Some of the symbols were repeated across multiple pages, often were depictions of group gatherings or symbolic offerings. The meaning of the glyphs remains undetermined. The sketchbook's content closely mirrored elements described in Noah Barrett's later memoir, including ritual circles and masked authority figures. While direct correlation cannot establish causation, the overlap between independent sources lent weight to the claims of psychological manipulation and ceremonial behavior. Investigators also revisited the anonymous note received by the Barrett family in 2002, which read, "We're alive. Let us go." Forensic reanalysis of the paper, ink, and handwriting found no new matches but reaffirmed its mysterious origin. It remains unclear whether the letter was a genuine cry for help or a calculated misdirection. Another persistent anomaly is the bus itself. Transportation records from 2002 show no clear registration for bus number 43. Attempts to trace its maintenance history, ownership, or driver logs all failed. While school records confirm the trip occurred and list Stephen Klein as the assigned driver, no trace of Clyde's identity, certification, or employment history has ever been verified. This absence deepens suspicions that the vehicle and its operator were inserted into the school system under false pretenses. Forensic reports concluded that the bus had been deliberately relocated. Soil analysis and undercarriage damage indicated movement across unpaved terrain consistent with forest transport. Investigators theorized that a combination of winches and heavy equipment may have been used to move the vehicle into position, but no such machinery was found in the vicinity. In summary, the physical evidence recovered from bus number 43 paints a portrait of abandonment, control, and concealment. The personal belongings, symbolic sketches, ceremonial arrangements, and logistical anomalies all contribute to a picture that remains complex and unresolved. Together, they suggest that the disappearance of the Maple Creek class was not an accident, but part of a larger and deliberately orchestrated act. With the rediscovery of bus number 43 and the reappearance of Noah Barrett, attention turned to understanding what had happened in the 2 decades since the Maple Creek class vanished. Multiple theories emerged, some grounded in testimony and physical evidence, others driven by skepticism, symbolism, and unanswered questions. Authorities have declined to endorse any single explanation, citing the ongoing nature of the investigation. However, 4 dominant interpretations have taken shape. The first and most detailed account comes directly from Noah Barrett. In interviews and his published memoir, What the Forest Took, Noah describes a coordinated abduction and indoctrination by a group known as the Ascended. He claims the bus did not break down by accident, but was deliberately diverted by driver Stephen Klein to a hidden forest path. From there, the group was taken to a remote woodland compound, where they were isolated from the outside world. According to Noah, the group used deprivation, forced rituals, and psychological conditioning to break down identities and reform members into believers. The phrase, "offered to the trees," recurs in his narrative, suggesting that non-compliant individuals were ceremonially sacrificed. He describes masked figures performing rituals by firelight and students buried or bound as acts of purification. Some of the imagery in Mei Lin's recovered sketchbook, figures in circles, cryptic symbols, and forest fires, closely mirrors these descriptions. Supporters of Noah's account point to this overlap as corroboration, yet not everyone accepts his story at face value. A second theory, led by psychological experts, questions the reliability of Noah's recollections. After over a decade in isolation and prolonged trauma, they argue, memory distortion is not just possible, but likely. Dissociation, hallucinations, and false memory implantation are documented effects of extended psychological stress. Under this view, Noah may be recounting a narrative that, while deeply believed, does not align with objective events. Supporters of this interpretation highlight inconsistencies in timeline details and gaps in Noah's account. They argue that without physical evidence of the Ascended's existence, such as structures, tools, or writings, his claims remain unverifiable. They also note that some of his recollections echo known psychological conditions, such as traumatic amnesia and survivor syndrome, complicating efforts to separate fact from perception. The third theory leans into the supernatural. Though never officially considered by law enforcement, this interpretation has gained attention through the imagery found in Mei Lin's artwork and Noah's own descriptions. Recurring symbols in the sketchbook resemble archaic glyphs, repeated references to the trees watching, eerie silences in the forest, and drawings of unnatural shapes contribute to the belief that something beyond human understanding played a role in the disappearances. Those who subscribe to this theory cite the ceremonial arrangement of the skeletons and the remoteness of the bus's final location. Some even connect the case to local folklore involving haunted groves or cursed land. While lacking forensic basis, the supernatural interpretation continues to fuel public imagination, amplified by media portrayals and online discussion forums. The final and most controversial theory revolves around conspiracy. Investigators have acknowledged major anomalies. Bus number 43 was never officially logged in transportation records. Driver Stephen Klein left no trace in employment systems, and no viable path exists to explain how the vehicle reached its burial site unaided. Combined with the anonymous letter mailed to the Barrett family in 2002 and the bus's apparent preservation, some believe the event involved a larger network, possibly including individuals within the school, transportation department, or local governance. Proponents of this theory argue that the group's disappearance could have been orchestrated with institutional knowledge, enabling a cover-up that buried physical evidence and erased identities. They question how a driver with no background verification was assigned to transport students and how no equipment or trace was left behind, despite the bus being hidden with great effort. The lack of follow-up in 2002 and the early closure of the case in August that year are also points of concern. Each theory presents a lens through which to interpret a deeply unsettling case. Noah Barrett's story offers a personal and chilling narrative of manipulation and survival. Psychological experts caution against taking trauma-informed testimony as literal truth. The symbolic evidence opens the door to unexplained elements, and the bureaucratic gaps invite suspicion of deeper involvement. As of now, no single theory has been confirmed, and the investigation remains open, suspended between what can be proven and what remains hidden in the forest. As of the end of 2023, the Maple Creek disappearance remains an open and active investigation. Following the discovery of bus number 43 and the emergence of Noah Barrett, law enforcement formally reopened the case in mid-June. A joint task force was assembled, drawing investigators from state and federal agencies. Their mandate: to review the original files, analyze new evidence, and pursue leads that had long been considered cold. 15 of the 25 missing individuals have now been confirmed deceased through DNA and dental analysis. 8 students and 2 adult chaperones are still unaccounted for. Their remains have not been recovered, and no trace of them has been identified in or around the forest site. Authorities maintain these 10 individuals are presumed dead, though their legal status remains that of missing persons. Their families continue to wait for definitive answers. Noah Barrett, the sole known survivor, remains under federal witness protection. His safety is considered a top priority due to the sensitive nature of his testimony. He has participated in multiple interviews, both public and classified, but has not made further appearances since the release of his memoir. Investigators have verified elements of his account that align with the recovered sketchbook and scene layout, though many aspects remain unconfirmed. Access to Black Hollow Forest is now restricted by state order. The site where the bus was found is under continuous monitoring, with no unauthorized personnel allowed entry. Forensic teams have completed their primary analysis, but environmental teams remain on standby in case of future excavation or search expansion. No arrests have been made, and no suspects have been publicly named. The Maple Creek community remains deeply affected. Annual vigils have resumed, and the school has erected a permanent memorial to honor the lost. For families, the return of remains has brought partial closure, but also renewed grief. The unanswered questions continue to weigh heavily, particularly for those whose loved ones have not been found. Parents, siblings, and classmates still ask the same question: what happened in the woods? Noah's reappearance triggered a renewed wave of national attention. Major media outlets covered his return extensively, sparking debates about trauma, memory, and institutional failure. True crime forums and documentaries reignited public fascination with the case, though officials have urged caution in accepting theories without evidence. Online speculation continues to thrive, often blending fact and fiction in ways that complicate the investigative process. Authorities say the case remains open indefinitely. All recovered items are cataloged and analysis is ongoing. Leads continue to be reviewed, with law enforcement encouraging the public to come forward with any new information, no matter how small. Officials have emphasized that the passage of time does not lessen the importance of truth, and that closure, however elusive, remains a goal. The case of the Maple Creek disappearance is no longer cold, but it is far from resolved. As the year closes, it stands suspended between what is known and what may never be recovered. A missing bus, 15 confirmed dead, 10 still lost, and a forest that holds more questions than answers. For now, the story remains unfinished.